In on a theory that's been floating around that perhaps the number of fatalities related to COVID-19 is being inflated because people are actually dying of other things. What's your read on that theory?
You know, Savannah, there is absolutely no evidence that that's the case at all. You know, I think it falls under the category of something that's very unfortunate, these conspiracy theories that we hear about.
A talking point worldwide says that COVID-19 deaths are a fraction of what we're being told.
What is the death rate of COVID? We've tried to figure it out here. You know, we've done 2 videos on it so far, and nobody knows. Well, I think a lot of people know, but they're not telling us.
That's American comedian Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is a YouTube personality and offers political commentary from the left.
So you mean all the stuff that they've been saying for 2 years straight about the death rate has been bullshit?
No. This thinking relies on the false premise that the COVID-19 death count is inflated by people who died with the virus rather than from the virus. It's time for the Truth-O-Meter Minute. When doctors or coroners write death certificates, they only list health conditions that actually contributed to the cause of death. If COVID-19 appears on someone's death certificate, it was always part of the reason they died. That's the case if it was listed by itself or if it's listed with other health conditions. Time for the rating. We rate the claim that total deaths from COVID-19 are far lower than reported as pants on fire.
It needs to be separated into 3 categories. One is the COVID as a direct contributor, the primary cause of death. The second is, could it be a secondary contributing cause? And then the third is COVID as an incidental finding. So somebody coming in with a gunshot wound or a heart attack and they happen to test positive. I think that we need to separate out and look at the percentages of each.
After relentlessly calling it a conspiracy theory, the New York Times and the CDC now admit authorities overcounted COVID deaths and overhyped the pandemic. The official number is probably an exaggeration because it includes some people who had virus when they died, even though it was not the underlying cause of death. Other CDC data suggests that almost 1/3 of official recent COVID deaths have fallen into this category. Into the category of they didn't actually die from COVID. The CDC is admitting. Is this the New York Times or the latest copy of No Shit magazine? A study published in the journal Clinical Infectious Diseases came to similar conclusions. The similar conclusion that they were overcounting COVID deaths. They finally figured it out in end of July 2023 over at the New York Times.
I just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.